I absolutely love reverb and delay because I feel like if you're trying to make a mix come to life and you're trying to make it sound 3D, reverb and delay are the best tools to do that. You can really make a sound feel super encompassing for a listener. However, I also think that these are some of the tools that are the easiest to get wrong in your mix or in your production. And if done incorrectly, if you have a mix that's swimming in reverb or you have a vocal that feels too dry because you were scared to throw delay on it, I think both of those can sound amateur, and if that wasn't the intention of the record, can really distract a listener. So what I want to do in this video today is actually walk you through how to handle reverbs and delays and how to get a mix to have a ton of space in it without swimming, without, distracting the listener, and really show you how I like to process those things to get a really, really 3D mix that doesn't feel super, super washy. So we're going to dive in and check all of that out in 1 second. But before we do, my name is Austin. You're watching Make Pop Music. If you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We do these every single Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, today is the last day of our holiday sale. So if you go to our website, makepopmusic.com, between now and the end of tonight, December 27th, again, that is makepopmusic.com. There will be a link in the description. And we're going to be doing our weekly giveaway. So if you leave a comment down below, we will be picking a winner on Monday, December 30th. All you have to do is leave a comment, anything you want. We will pick somebody at random on December 30th and announce it on our Instagram, so make sure that you follow us over there. But let's dive in so we can look at processing reverb and delay, because I think that this is kind of a game changer for your mixing. The first thing that I want to talk about is I think a lot of people don't give themselves enough options with reverb or delay. So for instance, you have to know what the vibe of the vocal or the guitar or the synth or whatever you're processing with wet effects is. Let me show you a quick example. If I go over here to the beginning of the song, we have a verse. The vocal is pretty dry.
Do you wanna die tonight? I can take it to heaven.
It would not sound good with a big, washy plate reverb or chamber reverb. So for this section, I want to process it with something that can just give me a little bit of width and a little bit of space. So we have this short room reverb right here. I've set that up on a send. If you're not familiar with using delays and reverbs in sends opposed to inserts, there's a ton of information about that online. We're not going to go into that a ton. But just know that every delay and reverb that we're using is set up as a send on this, not as an insert. So if we go into the short reverb, let me show you what it sounds like. I'm just using the Seventh Heaven Professional from Liquid Sonics. This has quickly become my favorite reverb ever, especially for vocals. I just think the BM7 is a perfect reverb unit. This thing kind of does it all. And for this, I'm just using one of their short rooms. It's room 1 in Studio A. Really short, just kind of a nice slappy thing, just kind of puts Ash in a space. If you want to listen to the song, it's called That Won't Ever Be Enough by Ash Taylor. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out. I did mix the record, but Ash did all the production. Let me show you what it sounds like without this short reverb, and then what it sounds like if I boost it. Here's no reverb.
Do you wanna die tonight? I can take it to heaven.
We can put it in a slight space just by kind of popping this in here at like negative 23 dB.
Do you wanna die tonight? I can take it to heaven.
If we boost that, it's gonna be too much.
Do you wanna die tonight? I can take it to heaven.
But you can see that it at least puts us in a space where the vocal doesn't kind of feel like it's sitting by itself. I love using a short reverb like this on like a rap vocal, spoken vocal, something like this that feels really dry and cutting. Because if I had that big washy reverb, it doesn't feel too great. However, we come over to this chorus, and I'll show you what this kind of sounds like. Let me mute all of the wet effects. And just kind of listen to what we got going on.
So what I gotta do, cause damn this kinda sucks. And if this can be love, then who I gotta fuck?
For this section, I feel like we can get away with having a lot more space, a lot more ambience. I want that chorus to feel really, really big. So that short reverb is not actually what I want to go for. I want to go for something like this really, really long plate, also in Seventh Heaven Professional. Actually, it's a chamber. It's their vocal chamber, and it sounds like this. Let me just show you. It's long, it's washy, it's bright. It's something that can really help that vocal open up in a mix. We're sending the background vocals to it as well. So that's a perfect example of how you don't need to pick the same reverb for every part of the song or every instrument in the song. All of these synths have different reverbs happening, and each one kind of has its own little space, and that can give us that big wall of sound. Just make sure that you're kind of paying attention to things like, decay times and things like that. You don't want anything to get too crazy, but that's the first tip. Make sure that you're picking the right reverb for exactly what you're wanting to do in that song. I went with short for the verse, long for the chorus. The next thing is take time to actually customize your reverbs. No matter if you're using Seventh Heaven, Verb Suite, Valhalla Vintage Verb, whatever's in your stock DAW reverbs, it doesn't really matter. A lot of them will have really similar functions. Let me show you. So if I were to just open up that preset, it's the Chambers 1 and the 10 vocal chamber preset. The stock is 1.6 seconds, 100% wet because we're using it as a send, and there's no EQ happening. There's not really anything happening in the advanced controls. It sounds like this. It's a beautiful reverb, but when I listen to it in the mix, it's not quite long enough for me. It's not quite giving me that space and that ambience that I want. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some things to just kind of tweak this to make it feel a little bit better. Let me go to the one that ended up being the right one. This is 2.6 seconds instead of 1.6. We're boosting the gain a little bit, and then we are doing some advanced controls. Using pre-delay is a great way to kind of help that vocal cut through, and, you know, the reverb just takes a second to kind of kick in. Seventh Heaven is really cool because they have it to a sync for your BPM, but if you don't have a BPM sync, you can always just go to a website like this, type in your BPM, and it'll tell you in milliseconds what a 32nd note, a 64th note, an 8th note is. So you can pop these into your pre-delay times, and it'll just help give that vocal a chance to kind of open up. Let me show you. Let me play it with a dry vocal so you can really hear it.
Damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though
It's a little distracting at that, so I'm going to pop it back to like a 1/64th or 1/32nd. That's going to give me just a hair so the transients of those vocals can come through and cut through. And then you have your other things. You have your multipliers. I like EQing my reverbs a lot. A lot of reverb plugins will have EQ, even stock ones. So for this, I'm kind of band passing it at 400 hertz and band passing it at 7 hertz. And then I'm doing a big lift on the high mids. I'm doing a pretty good lift on the mids. And I'm kind of just allowing this to kind of sculpt to my mix a little bit more rather than just picking a reverb and just, you know, only working with level. Using the tools that are actually in your reverb plugin, whether it's Seventh Heaven, Verb Suite, anything like that, are huge for sculpting that reverb to actually fit your mix. You can do it on every setting, basically. You can do it on your short reverbs. You can see down here, I'm still EQing this. I'm still changing all of these settings to make it feel perfect. You can do it on your delays as well. If we go into, you know, like an Echo Boy, I have, you know, Echo Boy being a little bit filtered. I have the feedback driving up a little bit. You can change to tape style. So go into your wet effects and make sure that you're really picking every single setting with intention, because I feel like tracks really start to get out of hand when people are not using their wet effects with intention, and it just gets really sloppy and messy and wet and not ambient in a good way, ambient in kind of like a washed out, muddy way. So that's feeling pretty good. The next step is to actually post-process some of your sends, and that's a big reason that I like using for my main reverbs, my main delays. I like using them as sends rather than inserts, is because even though these all have effects in them, maybe I want to do something where that delay or reverb feels a little bit weird, right? So let's hear this Echo Boy by itself. It's a great delay, but it feels a little bit dry to me. So a lot of the time on my delay sends, I'll pop a little reverb after it. For this, I'm just using the kind of stripped down Seventh Heaven version, not the professional. Save CPU. I don't need a ton of controls. And I just have this on a London plate at, you know, -1, like almost a 50% mix. I like making my delays kind of sit in the mix a little bit more, and then I'll almost always go in and post-process my delay or even my reverbs if they don't have as many EQ controls with something like Pro Q or a stock reverb, just to start to kind of take away the frequencies that I'm not really looking to have in my mix. This delay has a ton of frequency spectrum that's immediately going to get muddy in my mix if I don't need it. Let me show you what it sounds like without those post-processings in the mix, and then I'll show you with it.
Damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though the light turns red, I only came deep.
I'll do the same thing on reverbs. This one I didn't need anything because Seventh Heaven had all of the controls, but I'm doing it again on like a quarter note. There's an Echo Boy and then a Pro Q right here that you can band pass if you need it. I'm actually using like a tape setting on that, so I didn't need it too much. Same thing with a slap delay. If, let's say you want the slap delay to have some saturation, you could add like decapitator after it. I think that it just gives you a chance to treat each reverb and each delay as its own cool effect, and you can EQ them, compress them, saturate them, throw on a chorus, do whatever you need to kind of really create that space that you need. Now, the next thing, this is really the most important and kind of the reason that I made this entire video. All of these sends right here, I didn't do this for a long time. They need somewhere to go. So for a long time, I just had them going back into my all vocals bus. However, there's a really cool thing that you can do. If you just create a little returns group, this is all of my wet effects. It's my long reverb, my short reverb, my quarter note delay, eighth note delay, slapback delay. Everything is coming to this bus right here called vocal effects returns. Now, the reason that I like doing this is because as I start to throw on more delays and more reverbs and more spatial effects, it can still start to kind of overwhelm a mix. Even if you're post-processing it, you're EQing it, you're choosing all of your settings perfectly. I want this to feel really big and really ambient and really washy, but I want that vocal to really cut through. So there are things that you can do. Number one, it's just nice to have something where you can basically pull out all the wet effects if you need to, or automate them through the track. Maybe you want everything a little lower in the verse, a little bit higher in the chorus. Having it on its own little return track right here allows that. For instance, in this chorus right here, I'm pulling everything out.
Cheap champagne in the moonlight. So what I gotta do? 'Cause damn, this kinda sucks.
You can hear it right here. And having them on that vocal returns bus is crucial for that. The next thing is, just like processing all of those individual sends, I'm going to process this vocal returns bus as well. So if I play this with the dry vocals, the first thing that I like doing in this to make reverb really kind of shine is just sculpt it with some more EQ. So I'm getting rid of the lows. I find that they make a mix really muddy. I like the low mids of a natural voice. Low mids and reverb can really start to build up, so I'm getting rid of a lot of that. Same thing with top end. I don't need sizzle. I don't need sibilance, but I'm going to boost the sides a little bit just so we're kind of brightening up the width of these reverbs and delays. And I'm going to cut the mids a little bit right here at 110, 111, kind of right in the middle of the stereo field so that main vocal can cut through. So I have my main vocal coming up the middle. I'm taking away a little bit of that delay and reverb out of the middle. I have everything else kind of swarming in on the sides. I'm going to boost that delay and reverb a little bit on the sides. Let me show you what it sounds like with and without.
Cheap champagne in the moonlight. So what I gotta do? 'Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though the light turns red, I only came to you for one thing tonight. You know that won't ever be enough.
It can just kind of clean up that frequency range. If I listen to it without any of the dry vocals, let me show you what this sounds like. Here's what all these sound like without it. With it. This allows us to keep our low mids and our instruments and our bass and our vocals, things that feel really nice and tight and dry without having that feel super washy. Low mid can get really, really, really built up. Be careful about it. That's exactly why I have it on this little effects return. Also, you can do things like sidechain the wet effects to your dry vocal, right? So let's, go back over here. Step number 2 that I like to do sometimes is use a compressor. This is just stock in Cubase. And I just have that lead vocal from the pre-chorus. You can also do the lead vocal from the verse. Just triggering a sidechain compressor on all of these delays, all of these reverbs, all of these ambient effects. And let me show you what it sounds like.
Cheap champagne. 'Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck?
And it's kind of ducking everything while that dry vocal happens. I lined up that 60 milliseconds with that BPM to MS calculator that I pulled up earlier. If I were to pull this down a lot and change the ratio, it's going to be even crazier of a ducking effect.
'Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though the light turns.
It's a little aggressive for me. I'm going to pull it back up here, loosen this up to more like a 4-to-1. I like for this having like a 4-to-1 ratio, having it do, maybe 12 to 15 dB of gain reduction.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck?
And this can make a huge difference in the mix. Let me show you what it sounds like in the mix without both of these, and then with both of these, just by post-processing these returns.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though the light turns red, I only came to you for one thing tonight.
Again, just really pulls those vocals forward, but now I still have that swelling ambient reverb and delay happening on the tails, which is where I want it. You can even go a step farther and kind of do something similar with Track Spacer. This is more of a frequency-dependent side-chaining tool. So again, I'm side-chaining that pre-chorus lead, and this is just going to duck the frequencies. It's kind of doing a mixture of this compressor and Pro Q right here. I don't use it that hard. I'll use it closer to like 15 to 20, just to, again, sculpt a little bit of that kind of, you know, ambient EQ out of where I want the dry vocal to hit. And then hearing it in the mix with the dry vocal, it works so well.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah.
And doing all of this allows you to get the best of both worlds where, without any of that, you know, delay and reverb, I think the vocal feels a little bit dry and a little bit boring. Here is the chorus with no wet effects whatsoever.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though
Feels a little basic, it feels a little bit empty, it feels like it's not quite finished. Let me show you what it sounds like if we don't post-process everything, and we don't actually go in and do our due diligence with making every plugin feel perfect. Let me show you what it sounds like without any post-processing. Here's what it sounds like just by using the reverbs and delays.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck?
Also sounds a little bit amateur and a little bit unfinished. And then once we go in and we do the best of both worlds, we do all of our post-processing, we make everything feel really, really perfect. Let me show you what this sounds like.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck?
We get the best of both worlds. We get a really dry cutting vocal. You can understand everything Ash is saying, but we're still getting all of that really cool space, really cool ambience and texture, filling it in. I think that doing things like post-processing your sends, post-processing your returns bus, doing the side chaining, doing the EQ sculpting, that is massive for using a lot of reverb and getting away with a pretty ambient, a pretty wet vocal track, but not having it completely wash out a mix. Even if I just listen to these vocals in solo, it sounds incredible.
Cause damn, this kinda sucks. And if this can't be love, then who I gotta fuck? Yeah, even though the light.
So when you're going through your reverbs and your delays, especially for things as important as like your main vocals, put that time and care into it. I think that it makes a massive, massive, massive difference. Pick a good plugin, first of all. Go into the plugin and set your settings with intention. Post-process that to fit it into your specific mix. And then if you need to, sculpt out that returns bus to make way for your dry vocal, and you will be able to get an amazing vocal that has a ton of ambience without really making your mix sound super amateur. So once again, thank you for watching this video. If you like this, please make sure you subscribe. Like I said, we do these every single Friday. Again, today is the last day to shop our holiday sale. Make sure that you go listen to That Won't Ever Be Enough by Ash. I will leave a link in the description. Shout out to Ash for an incredible production. And then other than that, comment down below so you can be entered to win that giveaway. And we'll see you next week. I hope you have a happy new year. Much love. Peace.